There are countless public and private sector programs designed to help with the military to civilian transition. But there has never been an evidence-based method to measure what actually improves the well-being outcomes of veterans. To help meet this critical need, HJF has introduced the Veterans Metrics Initiative. The Veterans Metrics Initiative, or TVMI, is a public-private research study aimed at linking the basic components of transition assistance programs to post-military well-being. The study follows a group of approximately 9,600 veteran participants over their first 3 years of transition from military to civilian life. During that time, 6 comprehensive surveys are administered at 6-month intervals. Each survey assessment records participant well-being across 4 domains: health, vocation, finances, and social relationships. Following each assessment, the research team identifies changes in well-being across various demographic groups, distills the transition programs used into their common components, and examines the link between program components and well-being outcomes. The results can then be used to help guide the development, delivery, and use of transition assistance programs.
I think what's most unique about the TVMI study is that we're taking a look inside the black box of what it looks like when veterans separate from service. A lot of the research that's been done on veterans' readjustment after they separate has focused on veterans many years out of military service. Or some of those studies include veterans with widely varying separation dates. So there'll be veterans who've been out 1 year in a sample with other veterans who've been out 15 years. And the reality is that the concerns of veterans who've been out a really short time are probably going to be different from veterans who've been out a lot longer. So in this study, we're assessing veterans every 6 months from the time they separate through the first 3 years. And so we can really understand what are the most important issues for veterans at different points along that transition period.
So as part of the TVMI study, we pulled out common components of programs. And so really you take a program and you say, what's inside of it? And what's inside of it are these components that make it up. So we pull them out and are able to say, oh, if they were in an employment program, did they have resume writing and how was that taught? And we are able to put those codes back into the data and say, does that seem to predict whether or not they go from not having a job to getting a job? And in fact, we do find that some components are more powerful or more predictive than other components, which is the goal here, to understand which ones are effective strategies to achieving well-being outcomes.
One of the other unique aspects of this study is that we have this back and forth with our funders that I really have never had in a study before, where we're regularly engaging with funders, both in the design of the study. So when we were designing the study, we had a lot of input from our funders and other stakeholders in the field about what are the important issues, what are the unanswered questions, what do we need to know to help veterans have more successful transitions? And that really informed how we designed the study. Now, as we've begun to collect our data, we have regular updates with funders where we talk to them about what we're finding, and they give us input and they pose questions. So it's really, in a lot of ways, not just a collaboration among our team, but it's really a collaboration that we have with our funders.
The Veteran Metrics Initiative is a really unique study in that it provides a longitudinal view of military service members post-separation, which to me is invaluable information because the transition process really starts while they're on active duty, but the outcomes, the impacts of that transition are evident afterwards. And it's knowing how they experience life and the outcomes that they have, such as employment, financial well-being. You don't know that until sometime after they've separated. So this is a great study to help us understand that.
When I left the service, one of the key things that I used to help my transition was a corporate recruiter that helped place junior military officers. So it was important because it gave me a lot of information about corporate America and helped me do those things that were necessary to make that transition and understanding a new set of vocabulary and new things that were important in terms of job requirements in the civilian sector, and just preparing me overall for the transition, interviewing skills, resume preparation, things of that nature.
Well, for a company like Lockheed Martin, we employ more than 21,000 veterans. So some of the information in this study can go a long way to helping us tailor programs for our veteran population who are encountering many of the same issues as other transitioning veterans, and just be able to provide a supportive environment and give them the resources they need to really thrive with our corporation.
My name is Emmanuel Johnson. I work for the Robert R. McCormick Foundation as a program officer, and I'm a Navy veteran. We really want to know if we're making the correct investment. So I think the TVMI study is a great opportunity for us to really dig deep and see what a successful transition looks like for veterans and how we can better make the investments to help our veterans transition back home.
I graduated from West Point in 2006 and was commissioned as an ordnance officer, and then I served on active duty for 5 years, mostly with the 1st Cavalry Division out of Fort Hood, Texas. So we're supporting the TVMI study because our strategy is that veterans are assets to Pittsburgh, and we hear far too much about how veterans are needy or are really struggling in their transition, and there's definitely some truth to that, but we want to better understand what percentage of the population is, and of course applying funds towards some of the problems and obviously the solutions. We want to make sure that we're doing it in the most effective and efficient way. So we think just the combination of having a really good sense for what's happening as soldiers, airmen, Marines, sailors are transitioning, what's happening to them, and then when they're seeking assistance, what's working will make us better grant makers.
The data that we're gleaning from this study actually becomes a part of our conversation with other grantees. It's helping to inform their work and their thinking as well.
On a larger scale, the impact it'll have on the space is, to the best of my knowledge, there's never been a 3-year study of transitioning service members. And again, I think we tend to study the problems in the sector, in the veterans sector, and we don't really have a good sense for the entirety of the population and where they land and how they do. And I think just knowing that will be really groundbreaking.
This is a cohort that will be a national treasure. And it will probably not be something that will be able to be reconstructed or recreated. And someday people will look back on this work and say, for veterans and transitioning service members, this was the Framingham study of its time.
To learn more about the Veterans Metrics Initiative, visit hjf.org/TVMI.